Hi, and welcome to today's practice. I will be starting a series on the foundations of yoga. So, we'll encounter some practices on my channel that will have one pose that really stands out. And today it will be downward facing dog. You'll find that we will be returning to that several times to check in with ourselves, to check in with our alignment, and just to get back to this very foundational, the almost unglamorous pose of downward facing dog. And just spice it up in between there, and we'll get started. Go ahead and come to the back of your mat. You can just sit on your heels, close the eyes, hands resting gently at the top of the thighs. Palms can be facing up or down, whichever is most comfortable for you. Start to focus on your breath, breathing in and out. Take note on the length in your spine here and grow tall through the crown of the head. We'll continue to keep that length in the spine throughout the practice as we move through our downward dog. If the eyes were closed, go ahead and gently blink them open. We'll come forward into our tabletop position. So the shoulders are directly over the wrists and the hips are over the knees. And from here, we'll take just a few cat and cows. Go ahead and round the back. Tuck the tail, tuck the chin. Inhale, allow the belly to drop as you look up towards the sky, opening along the front of the throat. Exhale, tucking the tail once more. Rounding throughout the shoulders, really pressing into all your fingers, pressing into the front of your shins. And exhale, cow pose. And continue at your own pace using your breath. We'll do about 2 more rounds here. Starting to feel some movement throughout the body. Come back into your tabletop. We'll tuck the toes. From here, lift the knees only about 2 or 3 inches up off of the mat. We're still in our tabletop alignment, but now the core is engaged, drawing the belly button up and in towards the spine. Holding for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Keep those knees lifted. From here, we'll push into the hands as we push the hips back. We're into our rocket dog position, so our knees are lifted, the arms are straight, pressing backwards. Nice inhale here, and on the exhale, come forward, back into your hovering tabletop. We'll hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and slowly lower the knees back down to the earth. Untuck the toes. Draw the right knee in as you round the back, knee to nose. And on the exhale, extend the right leg, flex the foot, keep the hips level as we make the right leg long. Really push back out through that right heel, and we'll draw the knee into the nose 4 more times. On the inhale, extend from the crown all the way to the heel, waking up the back of that right hamstring. The last one. Extend the leg out long, and then bring it back into tabletop. We'll do the same thing on the left side. Draw the left knee in, round the back as you bring the knee to the nose. Inhale, push that left heel out. On the exhale, point the foot and draw the knee in as you round the back. Really push into the hands so you can make that knee nearly or actually touch the nose, and pull it back. 3 more. Heel goes out, extend the left leg long. Last one, goes back, draw the knee in and down. Now we'll do another similar variation to that. Draw the right knee in towards the nose, rounding the back. This time we'll keep the right knee bent as we inhale and lift the knee up towards the sky. So we're in a small back bend as we gaze up. If you feel any sharpness or pinching in the back, don't come as high. Lower the knee down, draw it back in as we go knee to nose, and lift up. Toes are pointed. Activate the back of that right hamstring to lift and to protect your low back. Two more. Draw it in. And last one. Reach it up and place the right knee back onto the mat. Left side. Bring the left knee to the nose, point the toes, keep the knee bent as you inhale and lift into that lovely back bend. Grounding into the hands, pushing firmly into the mat. Round knee to nose. Inhale, rounding. Exhale, drawing it in. 2 more. Last one, the knees can come back and down into the mat. From here, go ahead and tuck the toes, and we'll push back into a downward facing dog. Again, we'll be in downward facing dog for a lot of this sequence, so we'll start here thinking of our alignment. Fingertips are spread wide, but not too crazy wide, just so that they're comfortable, and we don't want the fingers close together. We want to have a strong foundation so we can press into the very first finger pad and push most of our weight into the thumb and the index finger side of the wrist, just to protect the wrists. Checking in with our alignment as we move down the body with the arms. The elbows should not be hyperextended, just a very small bend. If you are hypermobile, keep that in mind. That small bend in the elbow will make sure that you are working the appropriate muscles in the arms. The upper arms should be turned out, and that will assist in keeping the shoulder blades opened up and across the back. You do hear a lot that the shoulders should be away from the ears in downward facing dog, but if you think more about rotating those upper arm bones and keeping the shoulder blades wide across the back, you'll work out that foundation just fine. And the back itself should be nice and straight. If you feel rounding as you get to your lower back, that's where you need to start bending the knees, just so you can keep that very straight ski slope spine as you're in downward facing dog. The tailbone should be pointing up to the sky, so you have that anterior pelvic tilt. And as we make our way down the legs, getting a nice stretch in the hamstrings and the calves, and your heels do not need to be on the mat. It's available for some people, but not all. If you are trying to force the heels to the mat by sacrificing the curve in the spine, I suggest forget about the heels and just think about the nice straight spine. So from here, we'll go ahead and bend the left foot or the left knee, and we'll keep that bent just for a moment, just to feel. You might be able to lower the right heel slightly more and feel more of a stretch throughout the back. From here, let's bend the right knee. Press deeply into that left heel. You're just thinking of the downward motion, not necessarily touching the mat. From here, lift the left heel and bend both knees as you push very strongly into the arms. And then, if it's available to you, straighten out the legs. Otherwise, stay with the knee bent position. From here, inhale the right foot up into the sky. You're in your three-legged downward facing dog. So our foundation stays strong throughout the shoulders, pressing into the fingertips, really driving that left heel into the mat, using the right quad and the hamstring to help you lift and keep the hips level. As we bend the right knee and draw the right heel towards the left tailbone, we're trying to lift that right knee up to the sky, almost like we're stacking the hips on top of each other. That truly won't be attainable for most of us, but we just want to feel that upward motion. Now draw that right foot forward and in between the hands. And we come into our runner's lunge, just up on the fingertips, looking forward, chest is lifted, activating that left leg. Pausing here. Lower the left knee down towards the earth, untuck the toes, and we'll push back into our low lunge. Now, in this version of the low lunge, my torso is more vertical, and I have less of a stretch into the hips as I'm keeping the hips directly over the knee to start with. This is a great way to find your balance and again, find your foundations in your alignment. Staying here and maybe just gently having your hands resting on top of your right thigh or even on some blocks besides you. From this lunge, we'll start to lean into the hips, forming more of our Untitled Pose or low lunge, where we get a very deep hip stretch along the front side of the left hip. And you can stay here. Hands can be on blocks or lift the hands up to the sky for a slight back bend. Inhale wherever you're at. Draw the hands down towards the mat. And we'll push the hips back as we come into our Hanumanasana or half split pose. Tilting the pelvis so that our back stays straight. The straighter your back is, the more of an engagement you'll feel alongside the back of the right leg, throughout the hamstring, even the calf. I find if my chin is pointed upward versus rounding my head and looking down, I actually feel more of a stretch in that way as well, and it helps keep my tailbone tilted to deepen the hamstring stretch. Inhale here, maybe come up slightly and exhale, deepen the stretch, lowering down ever so slightly. From here, we'll take a twist, keep the left hand planted onto the mat, and inhale the right arm up to the sky. Hold. Exhale the right hand down. Inhale here, you're still back in your half splits, and then exhale will deepen back into the pose. Coming back from where we came, we'll roll the hips forward and come back into our low lunge, whatever variation you took on the first round, whether you came to the blocks, maybe you lifted your hands up towards the sky. Inhale here. And exhale the hands towards the mat. Tuck the back toes. We'll come back into the runner's lunge, lifting the chest, activating that back left leg. And then we'll step it back towards the plank, holding the plank here for 5, 4, 3, 2, And 1. We'll push it back into our downward facing dog. Checking in on the alignment between the fingers. The upper arms are turned out. Shoulders are spread wide and down the back. And the back is nice and straight. From here, inhale the left foot up to the sky for your 3-legged downward facing dog. Press into that right foot. Really lift using that left quad and the strength in your hamstring. From here, we'll bend the left leg and maybe reach that left hip towards the sky and opening up as you keep the shoulders in line to the front of the mat. Draw the left knee in and in between the hands. And you're in your runner's lunge on the left side. Lift the chest. Inhale and exhale. Softly lower the right knee towards the mat. Untuck the toes and push the hips back. So now your right hip is directly over your right knee and your left knee is over your left ankle. So we're in a more of a vertical low lunge position. Just taking a moment to double check our alignment before we deepen the lunge. Take an inhale here. Exhale, start to shift the hips forward towards the front of the mat. Still staying strong in the core, drawing the navel in towards the spine. Blocks are lovely to feel more supported and more stable in any of your poses. You can stay here, use the blocks, or if you would like to take a back bend, lift the arms up to the sky. Gaze comes up and towards the sky. One more inhale, and on the exhale, we'll lower the hands down towards the mat. Push the hips back for Hanumanasana or half splits on the left side. Take an inhale, lift slightly higher, and on the exhale, flex the foot and lower down. Come only to the point to where you start to feel your back start to round. From there, just come up slightly and get that very nice straight spine back in action. Pressing the heel into the mat, you'll feel the activation throughout the backside of the left leg. Maybe more of a stretch. We'll take a twist in our half split pose. So keeping the right hand on the mat, maybe elbows bent slightly to feel the stretch in the back of the left leg. As you raise the left fingertips up towards the sky and twist. On the next inhale, we'll come back into our half splits and exhale, lowering down. Maybe a little deeper this time, maybe not. On the next inhale, we'll push our hips forward and come back into that Anjaneyasana, whatever version you took on this side. Stretching out throughout the front of the right hip now. Lower the hands towards the mat. Untuck or tuck the back toes in, as we lift the right knee. Active in that right leg as we lift into our runner's lunge. Chest is nice and open. And from here, plant the hands, step the left foot back. We'll pause in our plank pose for 5. Rounding through that upper back, spread the shoulder blades wide. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's push back into our downward facing dog. Used as a resting pose, but it's also an active resting pose as we make sure that Every muscle is activated and in the position that it needs to be. Take a nice deep inhale here. Exhale, let it all out through the mouth. From here, we'll take the right foot over and cross it behind the left foot. So now our legs are crossed in our downward facing dog. You can bend the knees a little bit here. It will feel slightly awkward. We're just looking for a stretch alongside the right side body. Bring that right foot back into your down dog position. We'll start to roll up and through a plank pose. And we'll come through plank, lower the hips to our upward facing dog. But the knees are lifted and our toes are still tucked. So this is a hanging dog position. From here, we'll come from that into our downward facing dog. Push back, lift the hips high to the sky. Nice straight spine here. We'll get some nice spinal rollouts as we come back through plank, back into our hanging dog. Maybe widen the feet just slightly as you hang your upward facing dog. That sounds like a terrible term. Push back into our downward dog once more. And then we'll roll forward. Let the hips fall as you keep the toes tucked. The knees are up off of the earth. And then let's push back. Here we are again in downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, inhale the right foot up to the sky for your three-legged dog. Bend the knee as we come forward to a plank and draw the knee to the nose. Inhale the right foot up to the sky. Exhale, draw it in. Inhale it up, push into those arms. Exhale, draw it in. Two more. Inhale it up. Exhale, pull the knee in, draw in the navel. Last one, up to the sky. As we round the upper back and pull the knee in, we'll draw the foot all the way in between the hands. And then bring the right hand to the inside of the right foot as we come into our lizard pose. The back knee is lifted. You can stay here up on the hands. The right knee is over the right ankle, and you're looking forward. If you'd like to deepen the stretch, you can lower down and come all the way onto your forearms. Now you can lower the back knee if this feels awkward to you. For the next step, I do have a more intermediate choice if you would like to take it. I'd like to keep this as an all levels class just so that we all have something to keep it interesting, or if we just want to play in our practice. So you can either stay wherever you're at, or if you'd like to take a bind in your lizard pose, wrap that right arm underneath you, keep the left leg lifted, and then draw the left hand back towards your right hand as you take a bind in your lizard pose. Inhale here and exhale it out. Release the bind. Come back to your forearms if you were all the way on your forearms. If you're down on your forearms, let's go ahead and lift ourselves up so that we're on our hands. If your back knee was on the earth, you can lift that back knee at this time. We're going to step forward into Malasana Pose. So use the hands, lift the hips, step back with that, or push into that left foot as you step forward. and release the hips down into Malasana or your Yogi Squat. The left and the right heels are turned out. Again, we're growing tall. From the head to the tailbone, avoiding rounding in that spine. If you can't avoid the rounding, I suggest taking a block and sitting on it, and that will give you enough height to make space. On the next inhale, let's plant our hands to the earth. Lift the hips. We'll take a big step back with that left foot. And we'll lower down just for a moment back into our lizard pose. And this time, if you can get your forearms to the earth, I suggest taking that pose. And we're going to step the right foot back into our forearm plank. Now, if you weren't on your forearms, you could just do a regular plank here. We'll hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, draw in that core, 1. Really good. Let's come up to our hands, press back into our downward facing dog. Inhale here, exhale, release it all out. If you need a moment in child's pose, this would be a great time to take it. If you are in child's pose, come back into your downward facing dog and join us as we cross the left foot behind the right. Maybe bend the knees slightly as you press into the hands and open up the left side body. Come back into your downward facing dog. And we'll take those spinal rolls into our hanging upward facing dog. So let's roll through the spine, round the upper back, maybe widen the feet a little bit to make space as your hips drop. And you look forward in your upward facing dog. Knees are lifted, the legs are still engaged here. And we'll push back, exhale into our downward dog. Roll forward for our upward facing dog. Push back. Let's do that 2 more times. Probably feeling a lot of heat into the shoulders right now. Again, child's pose is always an option. Come back to our upward facing dog. And then push back into downward dog. From downward dog, we'll lift the foot into the air, the left foot into the air for our 3-legged dog. Bend the knee, draw it in as we come into a plank pose, knee to nose. The left knee touches the nose. And we will inhale, push the left foot up into the air. Exhale, draw it in for 2. Inhale it up. Exhale it in for 3. Lift that back leg. Come forward, staying strong in the arms. Lift it once more, last time. Bring it forward, rounding through the upper back, drawing the knee towards the nose. And the left foot, make space for it between the hands. Now the left hand comes to the inside of the left foot. You're in your lizard pose. Really just keeping it high here to start with. The back knee is lifted. Again, opening up through the left hip, just feeling it out. If you feel the space available to you, go ahead and lower to your forearms as you deepen the lizard pose. Keeping the back knee lifted or lowering it all the way to the earth. Sometimes a lifted knee can feel much more active. If you would like the challenge, you can take the bind in your lizard pose, wrapping the left arm underneath the left thigh, and then drawing the right hand back to meet the left. Press into that left foot, really driving it into the mat, staying strong through that front left leg. Exhale, release the bind, come back to your forearms on the mat if that's where you were at before, otherwise up on your hands. And we'll step our way up into our Yogi Squat on this side as well. So come to your hands, press into that right foot, rock yourself forward. As we drop the hips towards the earth, turn the toes out, lifting up and looking towards the sky. On the next inhale, we'll lower the hands to the mat, lift the hips, step that right foot all the way back, and we'll come back into our lizard pose. Hands or forearms down if you took the forearm plank, or just hands to the mat if you took a regular plank. From here, shift that left foot back, and we'll hold our forearm plank for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Very good. Let's take our hands up underneath our shoulders as we come into plank and press back. Here we meet again in our downward facing dog. Inhale here and exhale. From our downward dog, we'll go into turbo dog. So we'll bend the elbows just enough so that they hover towards the mat. You may need to bend the knees here. It's kind of an awkward position. We'll hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, and on the 1, let's straighten back up into our downward facing dog. So almost a resting position here as we're in our downward facing dog. Inhale, exhale it all out. And we'll take 5 downward dog to dolphin presses here. So you can either lower one arm at a time into dolphin, or do them both at the same time, or you could just stay in your downward facing dog. So lower down for 1 and lift. Lower down 2 and lift. 3 and lift. 4, lift up, starting to shake. 5, lift up, pressing back into your downward facing dog. Really probably starting to feel fatigued here in the arms and the shoulders. Again, child's pose is a great place to be. If you'd like to take a twist, that's where we're going next. Pressing the weight into the left hand, releasing the right hand and drawing it back to the left heel as our gaze come underneath the left armpit. Inhale here and exhale it out. On the next inhale, we'll come back through our downward facing dog and take that twist on the opposite side. Maybe pull onto that right ankle to draw yourself underneath your right armpit. Gaze is up. Very good. Last time, push back into our downward facing dog. Say goodbye to our downward facing dog today as we roll back onto our heels. Lower the hips and allow the body to come towards the mat. Take your arms out in front of you. Elbows are just slightly in front of the shoulders as we engage our Sphinx pose. Using Sphinx Pose as an active resting pose here, we'll draw the elbows towards us, like you're trying to slide them across glue on the mat. You're just feeling that directional pull. They're not actually moving, you're just feeling the elbows pull towards you. And that will help elongate throughout the front of your body, opening up through the chest, assisting this back bend. Using the quads to engage them and protect your lower back. Feet can be nice and wide here. You'll find it's much more easy to do some of these poses like Sphinx and Upward Dog if your feet are just a little bit wider to accommodate the hips as we naturally open in this position. If you'd like to deepen the back bend, you can go ahead and widen the hands out, push into the fingertips and come into your seal pose. Engaging the navel, drawing it in, maybe walking the hands a little bit more closely towards you, and that will deepen the pose even further. Whether you're in seal or if you would like to stay in Sphinx, we'll go ahead and take a little bit of a twist, just turning the neck. Look towards the right, and then looking towards the left. To the right once more, and then back to the left. If you would like to deepen the twist, whether you're in Sphinx or in seal pose, you can draw that right arm back towards the back of the right leg, and maybe shifting the gaze towards the back. If any of this is too sharp on the back, please don't go as deep and take another variation. Draw the right hand back towards the front, and we'll twist towards the left. Pardon the little interruption there. I had to attend to my video as I believe it stopped recording on me. So we'll release this twist and we will come back into our Sphinx pose. Inhale here and exhale. Just relax. Probably noticing how warm the back body is already. From Sphinx Pose, draw the hands back underneath the shoulders and we'll push ourselves back into a child's pose. You can be wide-legged or a narrow-legged child's pose. You can pick your poison here as we push back. Allow the hips to sink down and the forehead to come down towards the mat. And we'll actually take our Shavasana in child's pose here. So wherever you end up, just make sure that you're comfortable and you won't feel the need to fidget or adjust too much, as we will just carry out the last couple of minutes and use this as our resting pose. We'll take a couple of minutes of stillness here in the child's pose, the forehead resting on the mat. As you relax, feel the forehead soften, the space between the eyes soften and relax. Note the warmth that you feel in the body, the heat that was built in the shoulders, throughout the hips and the back of the legs.
Allow that heat to move through the body and to help you relax and to feel yourself open in this space. Whenever you're ready, you can start to walk the hands back slightly. Use them to push into the mat and to bring yourself upright. And we've worked out our first foundations of yoga sequence for the year. So I hope to continue these, perhaps moving into plank and warrior poses as we progress along. As you may have noticed, we didn't do a single sun salutation today, but yet coming back into downward dog and feeling out those movements as we were in just downward facing dog could be quite intense at times, and you could really start to feel the burn throughout the upper body and the shoulders, and probably throughout the back of the legs too, as you're mindful through each movement and just knowing where your body should be in space as you move through the mat, knowing where you should be, or just the alignment that you should be feeling as you're cued through these poses is much more important than how the pose actually looks and just mimicking the instructor or a picture that you see. So, thanks again, as always, for joining me today. Please hit that like button below and hit subscribe, and have an amazing day. Bye.